Thank you for coming. If I could remind you, please, to turn off your phones. If I could also thank our sponsors. We have a specific sponsorship this morning for the Wednesday Shurim by Rabbi Stephen and Kim Ettinger in memory of his parents, Rav Tzvi Binyamin ben Avram Yehuda, Zichron Livracha. That's Rabbi Tzvi Ettinger, and also Gnesha Zelda Bas Tzvi Hirsch, Alei Shalom, Mrs. Jean Ettinger. The Yortsites are on, respectively, the 18th and the 19th of Adar. Are the sponsors here? Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you very, very much for the sponsorship. I hope I pronounced all the names well enough. And also the Shir is sponsored through 2025. Le'ilui Nishmois, Brandner Bas Brandit, and Zelig Ben Kalman Aleihim Shalom. Okay, so in a kind of biblical way, when it comes to Erev Pesach, which falls on Shabbos, there are the years of plenty and there are the lean years, okay? Sometimes there is a relatively speaking plentiful supply of this calendrical phenomenon. Sometimes it happens 3 times in 7 years. We had that at the beginning of the 2000s, if anyone remembers back that far. 2001, 2005, 2008 were all years in which we had Purim Mishulash and also Erev Pesach on Shabbos. They always go as a team. And then there are the lean years. Between 2008 and 2045, this only happens, 45, this only happens twice. Between that nearly 40-year span, which is 2021 and 2025. So here we are. So I hope you'll forgive me if we look at this again. Some of you have got long memories and will remember back to 2021 or even maybe even to 1954. Who knows when it felt then. But I can promise you, bli neder, but I'm pretty convinced of it, that I won't give the shir again until 2045. Unless you really want me to. Then we have also, before then, in just 12 years from now, Bedikas Chametz, where we all troop out to make the bracha on the sun just before Pesach. So that's 2037. That's another shir that rabbis keep on their shelf ready to dust off every 28 years. We had one, correct? A long time ago now. Yeah, it's every 28 years, and the last one was a good long time ago. Okay, so on this phenomenon of Erev Pesach on Shabbos, it actually is very good because it gives us an opportunity to do a little bit of chazara on certain issues which come up on a regular basis, certain halachas we often take for granted, and we say, oh yeah, I know that, but it's good to recap, etc. And I've listed 17 halachic issues on the front page, things that we're going to talk about, most of them, and will give us some hopefully enjoyable Torah learning over the next 45, 55 minutes. The first question to raise really is the Shabas Hagadol derasha. Now, the rabbis like this derasha. In some classical, old-time shuls, this is one of the only occasions in the year the rabbi actually got up to speak, Shabas Hagadol and Shabas Shuvah. And this year is a bit of a question because the purpose of the Shabas Hagadol derasha is usually to help people to prepare for Pesach. What do they need to do? How do they need to get things ready? And this year, Shabas Hagadol is on Erev Pesach, so it's a bit late. Once you've already got there, if you haven't done it, then you haven't done it. So some Rabbanim like to bring the Shabas Hagadol derasha back to this Shabbos. Some just like to give 2 Shabas Hagadol derashas. Why not, And that's what I think a lot of people will do. This Shabbos will be the regular derasha where people are given the kind of revision to prepare and get stuff ready for Pesach. And the Erev Shabbos is actually a very nice on Erev Pesach, when you can have Shabbos and Erev Pesach, you can relax. Erev Pesach is a very busy day of the year. At least you can relax a little bit, hear some ideas for the Haggadah, and that's what's probably going to happen on the immediately before Pesach Shabas Hagadol. Okay, let's talk about Taanis Bechorim. Now, we had a whole shir on Taanis Bechorim, and they go as a team, really, the fast of the firstborn together with the fast of Esther, 2 unusual Taniot, which do not work the same way as a regular fast day. We had last week a shir on Taanis Esther. A few years ago, we had a shir specifically on Taanis Bechorim. I am a Bechor, so I relate to this personally. My wife is a Bechorah. We have a family of Bechorot. My mother is a Bechorah. My firstborn son, I suppose that makes sense, is Bechor. So we have a lot of Bechorot running around the family. How does this work? So there is a minhag to fast, maybe even a halachic requirement to fast for the firstborn on this day. And unusually, when it comes to Erev Pesach, which falls on Shabbos, we have a bit of a dilemma. When are we going to do this fast? Because normally speaking, when there's a fast, which cannot be done on the specific day, we push it off. Look at number 1. Tisha B'Av, for example, Tisha B'Av. Ma'achrin, we always make it later. If it falls on Shabbos, we push it to Sunday. V'loi mekadmin, we never, makdimin, we never bring it forward to an earlier fast. Why? Akdumi puranos loi mekadmin. We never bring forward negative thoughts, negative times. Maybe we won't have to have a Tisha B'Av, maybe we'll be celebrating. But of course, in this particular case, there's no way we can push off Taanis Bechorim when you're going to push it off too. And therefore, we will bring it forward, just like we bring forward Taanis Esther. Look at number 2. The Imchal Shlosha Asar B'Shabbos. We had this last week. If the 13th of Adar falls on a Shabbos, Makdimim Umatani B'Chamishi. We bring the fast forward because it's not a sad fast. It's not a fast of mourning for the Mikdash. It's a happy fast. Taanis Esther Shehu Echadasa. We bring it forward to the 11th. That's okay. So what are we going to do with Taanis Bechorim? So we basically have 3 choices. We can't do it on Shabbos, which is the actual Erev Pesach date. We either do it on Friday, bringing forward 1 day, or we do it on Thursday, bringing forward 2 days, or we just don't bother doing it. Most people don't do it anyway because they're not Bechorim. But what are we going to do? So the Beis Yosef is in 2 minds. He brings 2 views. Number 3. Because of the Trumas Hadeshen, he first brings the Ashkenazi Psak of the Trumas Hadeshen, very important late Rishonim, lots of Minhagim of Ashkenaz. She'im chal Erev Pesach b'Shabbos. When Erev Pesach falls on Shabbos, mit'aneh b'choros b'yom chamishi. We're going to fast on Thursday. Shelifnei HaShabbos, she'ken kasav ha'rokeach. This is an ancient Ashkenazi minhag. The rokeach was already early Rishonim. V'ken kasav ha'ega, b'shem Mahari Moilin. Mahari Moilin also, Rabbi Yaakov Moilin is a very important minhag-focused Ashkenazi posek of the 14th, 15th century. So that's the minhag to do it on a Thursday. Because of Achein Avi Moiri, okay, but he writes, however, that my father, he says, but there was an idea that maybe you just don't have to fast at all. Hoil v'nidcha, since it's already been put off, yidcha, yidache, you put it off. Because it's only really a minhag. We're not going to start driving people crazy for a minhag. Taanis Esther is a little bit more than a minhag because it's already in the Gaonim and it applies to everybody. But even then, we weren't happy for people just to push it off forever. Remember, if you couldn't fast on Taanis Esther on Thursday, maybe you'd fast instead on Friday. Taanis Bechorim is on a lower level than Taanis Esther. Okay, we don't have a siyum on Taanis Esther and say, okay, we're all good to go. Okay, on Taanis Bechorim, we'll see the minhag is to have a siyum. We'll talk about the siyum in a minute. The Meiri says, I don't know what the problem is. Why don't you just fast on Friday? So people say, oh, how can you fast on Friday? Shabbos, etc. So one of the reasons why we don't fast on Fridays is number 1, because of Kavod Shabbos. Is number 2, because all the slichos that we have to say, we're not going to get, we saw last week about Taanis Esther, we're not going to be able to get ready for Shabbos if we're too busy saying slichos. So the answer is, well, that's a bit of a selective argument because we manage perfectly well to do a Sarah B'Teves on Friday, number 1. And number 2, there are no slichos on Taanis Bechorim. So what's the problem? Just fast on Friday. Oh, how could you fast on Erev Shabbos? Well, second, Taanis Bechorim is always on Erev Pesach. We manage to fast on Erev Pesach. So if we can fast on Erev Pesach, we can fast on Erev Shabbos. So there are quite a lot of people say, just do it on Friday and be happy. However, the Shulchan Aruch doesn't rule that way. Number 4, Im chal Erev Pesach Shabbos yesh omim shevitzanim b'chos b'yom hey. So the first yesh omim is that we do it on Thursday. The yesh omim shenei mitamim klal. And the other option is just not to do it at all. Doing it on Friday just doesn't seem to be an option. Aval yesh ninog, and says the Ramah, but our minhag in Ashkenaz is k'svara harishona. We do it on Thursday, and therefore that seems to be the custom to do it on Thursday. Sfaradim are more likely to rule not to bother doing it at all. Or even they usually say on Thursday, but as you and I know, we tend to have a siyum, and therefore we can have a siyum on Thursday. We can have a siyum on Friday as well. Some people say to do both. Why not? More siyumim, the better we are. But the minhag is to do a siyum. Okay, so how do we do that siyum? Either we say we'll just do what we regularly do. On whichever day we fast Taanis Bechorim, that's the day we'll have a siyum. Or maybe we'll say, no, we have to be strict this year. Why do we allow a siyum on Erev Pesach for the firstborn? Because it's very hard to fast on Erev Pesach, meaning it's such a busy day, you're going to come into Pesach like a shmata. We really relax as much as we can and give people an out, even though a siyum is not usually a good reason to not fast. We're going to be helpful for people on Erev Pesach. You have Rachmanos. Well, this year, Taanis Bechorim is not on Erev Pesach. It's not even on Erev Pesach. It's on Erev Pesach. Okay? And people could fast. Why give them an out with a siyum? People are not usually underfed. They can manage for a day without eating. So that's another option. Oh, lo plug with them. We say lo plug with drabbanons when we don't want people to really play fast and loose with them. We're already plugged, by the way, because we're already having it on the wrong day. There is another approach, which is, no, you have to be more lenient with a siyum and allow even less of a siyum than normal, because maybe you don't even need to fast at all, and therefore there are different minhagim on this. It's not exactly, I think, the most important part of the discussion this afternoon, but the minhag is that we do a siyum on whichever day you do Taanis Bechorim. You do it on Thursday, you do it on Thursday. If you do it on Friday, which most people don't, you can do it on Friday. And you can do it over Zoom. Remember COVID? We did a lot of these things over Zoom. A siyum over Zoom is fine. There are people that are worried. Well, once you start allowing people to do a siyum on Zoom, then that's going to be the end of the 9 days. Like every night is going to be a fleishik meal. But look, we're going to eat dinner. We're going to eat steak while we're watching a siyum on Zoom. That's okay. And the answer is no, I don't think people are going to do that. People tend to take the 9 days seriously. And anyway, if you go to America, if you go to 5 towns now, you can go to a live siyum every single night during the 9 days in a different fleishik restaurant. There'll be bochurim having siyumim every night. You can decide whether you think that is in the spirit of the law, not in the spirit of the law. I'm not commenting now. Okay, fine. So much for the siyum. Everybody's happy. More importantly, when are you going to search for chametz? Because as you know, you do a Bedikas Chametz on the night before Pesach. Okay, so that would be Friday night this year, and then you do a bittul, which is after you search the house for chametz, you make a bittul chametz. You say, any chametz that I didn't find, that I don't know about, then I'm making, hefka, completely ka'afra da'ara. But of course, the chametz that I'm keeping on a normal year, for tomorrow morning, for breakfast, on Erev Pesach, I'm not going to be mafkir that, because I'm going to eat that for breakfast. And then normally what we do is we have our breakfast. It used to be back in England that I'm a bechor, so we used to go to the siyum, and the siyum was bagels. I mean, that's when people finished their chametz. Now you can't see chametz on Erev Pesach anywhere in the shul. I don't know somehow we managed to keep a halacha in the 1990s by having chametz on Erev Pesach in the shul. Now all you get is non-gebrochts, non-chametz biscuits, whatever. So that's when you eat the chametz, and then you do a final bittul, which you say, that's it, all chametz, even the chametz that I know about, it's all gone. This year we have a problem, because the night before Pesach we can't do this process as normal. Number 5, Yud Dalet Shechaliyos b'Shabbos. Says the Shulchan Aruch, when Erev Pesach falls on Shabbos, Boikin Leil Shloish Asar. We're going to do the Bedikas Chametz on Thursday night. Umevarin Akol, and we burn everything Lifnei HaShabbos. Friday. We burn, because you can't burn on Shabbos, so you burn on Friday. Are there any restrictions on timing? Normally we do the burning in the morning because we have restrictions. But this is not the morning, this is Erev. So do you have to do it at a specific time? We'll get to that in a second. And just make sure you keep behind food, he seems to imply here, chametz food, for 2 sudas on Shabbos, because you have to make hamotzi. You have a Friday night dinner, and you have a Shabbos morning lunch. What about Suda Shlishit? We'll get to that when we get to that. But basically he says you do your Bedikas Chametz on Thursday night. Now, do you make a bracha? Yeah, we make a bracha al biur chametz. It's one of those nice brachas you only get to make once a year. There's a short list of brachas you only get to make once a year. And this is one of them, al biur chametz. You do it on Thursday night because that's fine. It's brought back. And you do the regular searching around for chametz, and you do the regular bittul chametz afterwards. So everything is normal, except it's just one night before. It's Erev Pesach rather than Erev Pesach. Now, what about Friday morning? Well, why didn't you do it on Friday morning? So we prefer to do the Bedikas Chametz at night time, because then when you're having a flashlight, I mean, you can be, I'm very traditional. I take a little candle and a feather, and I go around for the first 2 minutes with a candle and a feather, just so that, kids can take a photo and send it to the grandchildren. Look, Saba lives in Poland, whatever. And then I just put all that to one side, put it in the cupboard for next year, and take out a flashlight, and then start looking under everywhere. The question is, okay, Friday morning we won't do it because we like to have the dark to contrast find that crumb. Although I must tell you, my son-in-law has a very good vault. It's not a vault, it's very important. These days, Bedikas Chametz is much less looking for the crumb that is underneath the sofa, which, by the way, you don't have any chiyuv in halacha to even get rid of that crumb. It's a filthy crumb. You don't even have to look for it. Never mind, get rid of it. If it's a little crumb. He says, Bedikas Chametz today is checking before Pesach your packets of bisli and bamba that look exactly the same as the regular chametz stick bamba and bisli and bagels, and checking that you, by mistake, didn't pick up a real chametz one as opposed to a Pesach stick one, because we now live in used to be when I was a kid, everything on Pesach looked completely different. Even the knedlach looked different. My grandmother, when she made knedlach, alei shalom, on a regular year they were little knedlach, and on Pesach they were big knedlach like this. You could just see the knedlach to know it was Pesach. This year everything looks the same. And these days everything looks the same. The cookies look the same, the crackers look the same, the bread looks the same, the bamba looks the same, the bisli looks the same. So Bedikas Chametz really is to go through that cupboard and make sure that the supermarket didn't make a mistake, or you didn't make it. Every year I find in the supermarket something which is like a chametz stick, and I just wave it at the mashgiach and say, what about this? Oh, so I think that's very good advice in the name of my son-in-law, Tzvi, and I think it's a good thing. Now, why not do Bedikas Chametz on Friday night? Do it on Shabbos. So you're going to say, how are you going to hold a candle or a flashlight on Shabbos? The answer is, bring in a non-Jew. What's the problem? They can do, that's the night for Bedikas Chametz. So you bring in someone who works for you, and they'll do the Bedikas Chametz. Look at the Magen Avraham. Never heard of it, right? Number 6. Ubeshla. He brings the Shnei Luchos Abris, okay, from the 1500s, 1600s. Because of the Yotzi HaChametz Ayidei Akum. Get rid of your chametz by a non-Jew. Why? Because you have a positive rabbinic mitzvah that night, Erev Pesach, not Thursday night, Friday night. You have a positive rabbinic mitzvah. They said you do the mitzvah of tashbisu, of getting rid of your chametz, is a Torah mitzvah on Erev Pesach, and the rabbis imposed an aspect of that, which is Bedikas Chametz on the night of Erev Pesach. So you have a mitzvah. And that mitzvah will be doche v'dache lo taseh d'rabbanan da'amiru la'akum, which is a fascinating piece of Magen Avraham. It looks like an innocent line of Magen Avraham, but he's doing something very unusual here. He's saying that the concept of mitzvah aseh, doche lo taseh, we see this quite a lot with Torah mitzvahs. Yibum is the classic one. You have a mitzvah, a prohibition in the Torah to marry a brother-in-law. Okay, it's one of the prohibited relatives. And yet, when there's a positive mitzvah of Yibum in specific situations, that overrides the mitzvah of the negative mitzvah of not marrying the brother-in-law. There's a lot of hashkafa built on this, the midah of ahava, of doing things for God, with God. It overrides the negative of holding back, because the ahava has to override the yira, the yamin, and the small. There's a lot of Torah in that. Says the Magen Avraham, here too. You have a rabbinic mitzvah to go looking around with a candle for chametz. You have a rabbinic prohibition to ask a non-Jew to do that. So which one wins? Aseh, doche, lots aseh. And it sounds like he wants to do the lechatchila, do it on Friday night. I don't know anyone who does this. It's not the minhag, for sure. You might turn around and say, well, one second. If a positive rabbinic obligation overrides a negative rabbinic prohibition, why do I even ask one a non-Jew? I'm going to walk around with a flashlight. Because that's Muktza, right? I'm going to walk around with a candle. Because if I can already break one derabbanon by asking a non-Jew, why can't I just break a different derabbanon? Mitzvahs aseh doche lo taseh. And the answer to that is no. Not all derabbonons are born equal. In Hilchos Shabbos, the prohibition derabbanon of asking a non-Jew to do something for you, especially in the context of a mitzvah, is much lower level than the actual prohibition of carrying around a candle, leaving aside that you might put it out and all sorts of things which you could come to a derasha, and therefore no one's going to suggest that we have an actual candle that the Jew's going to carry, but nevertheless the idea of asking a non-Jew is at least there as a question. By the way, the Shulchan Aruch brings down when they used to make weddings on Friday, which they often used to do because it saved money because they only had one cow and they needed to try and work out how we're going to make that work for the wedding feast and for Shabbos. Shulchan Aruch brings down you have a non-Jewish band playing live music on Friday night. Yeah. Says, I mean, they didn't have any other music but live music in those days. He says, how can you have a wedding without music? So, you ask a non-Jew. Non-Jew playing in a band. Yeah, but it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah of Simchas Chosn V'Kala. Yeah, of course you can ask a non-Jew to do that. So again, I don't think you'd get away with that today, but the idea of asking a non-Jew in these mitzvah situations is brought down. Rav Rimon brings down that if a person just forgot completely all about this on Thursday night, didn't do anything, didn't do a bittul, didn't do a bedika, and then Friday night suddenly happens, and he says, oh my goodness, I didn't do any of that last night. So then, go pick up a flashlight, but look around with, in the electric lights in the house to check that there's no chametz under anything. Looking for chametz is not breaking Shabbos, but hopefully you won't forget to do things on Thursday night, and you will have had that all done. Okay, good. Fine. That's the first stage, looking for the chametz. What about burning the chametz and the bittul that comes with that? So this is already in the Mishnah. Look in the Mishnah, number 7. The 14th of Nisan that falls on Shabbos, mevarin es hakol milifnei haShabbos. You burn the chametz, you destroy the chametz on Erev, before Shabbos, on the 13th. Divrei Rabbi Meir, so says Rabbi Meir. Chachamim v'chachamim omrim, no, bismana. You do the biur chametz on Erev Pesach on Shabbos. That is the time to destroy the chametz. Rabbi Eliezer Bat Tzadok says, well, it depends. Truma milifnei haShabbos. Truma you have to get rid of. You have chametzdik truma on the Friday, on Erev. Yes, because truma, there's not much you can do with truma on Shabbos. We'll see lots of options. The best way to get rid of chametz on Erev Pesach is to eat it. Okay? And people like eating, especially on Shabbos. Truma is a very elite food, and there are not that many people that can eat it, so it's going to get left over, and there's nothing you can do with it. So Truma will get rid of early. But Chulin is manna, but no, he says, absolutely. Chulin, non-Truma, which is all of our chametz, do it on Shabbos, get rid of it on Shabbos. Now, how are you going to get rid of chametz on Shabbos? So I already gave you one option. Eat it, okay, number 1. Number 2, flush it down the toilets, pour bleach over it, put it in the garbage. First of all, they had chemicals that they could pour over it. Tar, pitch, who knows what. Leaving aside issues of Shabbos and how you get that and do that. They had garbage dumps, they had hefka, they had all sorts of things. They could crumble it up and throw it in the wind. We'll see that in a minute. So what do we do, Lamaisa? Shulchan Aruch, number 8. Yud Dalet Shechal Yos b'Shabbos. When the 14th falls on Shabbos, Boikim Leil Shlosha Asa, we do the Bedikas Chametz on Thursday night. Umevarin Hakol Lifnei haShabbos. The first thing is we don't leave anything till Shabbos. We do it all on Friday morning. When? So then he says in bed, Tov Leva'er be'erev Shabbos Kodem Chatzos. It's preferable to do the biur chametz, to have your bonfire on Friday, even though it's not Erev, it's Erev, in the morning, like we normally do. So the people don't make a mistake. No, next year when it's in the middle of the week, they'll think, I don't know, when did I do my bonfire last year? I did it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, that was very convenient. I'll do that again. You might make a mistake, so don't do that. And says the Ramah, so for sure, the bittul chametz, you can leave till Shabbos. Remember, after you burn the chametz, you say the final bittul. For sure, you can leave that. Maybe even you should leave that till Shabbos, because how are you going to do that on Friday? Again, on Friday morning, when you do the bittul chametz, you finished, you're done with chametz. And you say, even the chametz I know about, it's all gone, it's finished, I don't need it, I'm now Pesachdik. This year, you can't say that on Friday, because Friday is Erev, and you're going to need chametz, possibly, for tonight, for Friday night, and for Shabbos. We'll get some matzah shir in a minute. Okay, we'll see who you are, if it's saying you can use. Okay, so the bittul chametz we leave till Shabbos. Look at number 9, says the Mishnah Berurah, you do not need to do the bittul chametz on Erev Shabbos. B'shas biyuro, when you do the biur, when you burn things like you normally do. Okay, to self, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to do it tomorrow anyway. I mean, you could do it twice if you like, but it's not the only real one is on Shabbos. Because even if you make the bread hefka on Friday, you're going to just take it back again and use it for Shabbos. And you need to just make sure that when you're leaving stuff behind for Shabbos, that it's very small and you have exactly what you need, and no more. We'll talk about that in a minute. There is a Yehi Ratzon that people say when they, Kabbalistic Yehi Ratzon, that they say when they burn the Chametz. You can say that whenever you like. You can say that in the middle of June if you want as well. You can say that when you burn the Chametz, it's like a tefillah that, just like we're burning away all the negative, we should get rid of all the negative in our neshamas. That's a good thing to daven for all the time. Fine. Now, destroying the Chametz on Shabbos, there are ways to do it without burning. Obviously, burning you can't do. That's an Issa min HaTorah. But the Raavad, number 10, comes along and said, Aval b'chulin, when it comes to non-truma, Einam avar klum. He actually has a different minhag than the one we have. He thinks you shouldn't even make any kind of bonfire on Friday. Or we do, that's our minhag. But he says no, he's in France in the 13th century, because that's not Erev Pesach. You shouldn't do that at all. Ela bezman or Shabbos. I didn't quote him, but he's in the Gemara that also saying you do it bizmano. The travahu sphirale the hadadi the kain ikka. This is the halacha. These two great Tanaim conclude that on when Erev Pesach falls on Shabbos, you have to do your biur chametz on Shabbos. So you should do it on Shabbos. And again, even if you burn the chametz on Friday, what are you going to do with your leftover pizza bread on Shabbos morning? So again, eat it. I think is the best solution. But the Mishnah Berurah says in number 11, v'chein mutar letaltaloi, you can carry it around, meaning you can take it out, ulahashlicha lebeis hakisei, and throw it in the toilet. Now, maybe they didn't used to have a bathroom in the house, they had one in the road. Even my father, who grew up in the 1950s in England, he didn't live in the 1830s in Radin. They didn't have any bathrooms in the house, they just had them in the road. Yeah, that's how it worked. A key, yeah? And a pair of slippers for the night time, yeah? So that's just take it outside, throw it in the basic kisei, the imiyesh basic kisei. But so if you have one in your chatzah, obviously he's worried about carrying, if there's no Erev, if you can't carry it in the street. Okay, that's separate. The im nishasa ad shash shishis, da'az asa bahana, and if you left it too late, now the chametz is already past the deadline, and it's also to have any benefit from it. You left it on Shabbos morning too late. What can I do? Now I can't take it and use it and do it. Maybe even be Muktza now. The asa betiltul, and it's now Muktza, which also is a big topic. Can something become Muktza in the middle of Shabbos? And how Muktza can it become? That's a fascinating topic. Usually speaking, Muktza is when Shabbos comes in. And we know that you can't demuxify something on Shabbos. For example, when you light your Shabbos candles on Friday afternoon, the candles are Muktza. Why? The flame is Muktza, the candle's Muktza, and that makes the base Muktza, and maybe the tray Muktza. I'm not getting into how far that goes down. But when the candle goes out, Shabbos morning, there's nothing Muktza there. I mean, the thing that made the whole thing Muktza is gone long ago. So why can't you just clear the candlesticks, just clear the space, put them away? Nope, they're still Muktza. Why? Because what's Muktza when Shabbos comes in is always going to be Muktza, all through Shabbos. So by the same token, maybe, what's not Muktza when Shabbos comes in, maybe will not be Muktza all through Shabbos. The whole point is that Shabbos, you can't change the status of things. That's actually a deep philosophical machshava point. Shabbos is a time of being, not of becoming. We're not changing things. We're kind of straight what we are. That's why Shabbos is like Olam Haba. It's compared to Olam Haba. Because Olam Haba, if you're prepared, if you put in the work in Olam Hazeh, then Olam Haba is Gan Eden. If you didn't put in the work, then Olam Haba is much less Gan Eden. So too, if you prepare for Shabbos on Friday, Shabbos is gorgeous. If you get stuck in a snowstorm on Friday afternoon, and that Shabbos is a nightmare. Okay? So things shouldn't be able to become Muktza. There's actually a discussion of this in the Mishnah. I think it's in the Mishnah, certainly in the Gemara. If you have a bowl and a chick jumps on the bowl in the middle of Shabbos, and now you're looking at this chick, and this chick is looking at you, and you're thinking, I need that bowl, because I'm using it for lunch. And the chick's saying, well, I'm standing on it. What can you do? Because the bowl, I said, just pick up the bowl and just push off the chick. Well, second, the bowl is Muktza. It's now a bosses to a live animal. A bosses to a live animal is Muktza. So, it's only been Muktza for the last 5 minutes. How much of a bosses? And that is the discussion here as well. How Muktza is your chametz when it wasn't Muktza when Shabbos came in? Just bringing that as a flag, fascinating. I like Hilchas Muktza. Maybe I'm strange. I could give a 6-part series on interesting ideas in Hilchas Muktza, but don't worry, I'm not going to. Okay, so what about?
something become asur in the middle?
Yeah, sure, for sure become the asur, because the Torah says that the Isra of Chametz kicks in at midday. So for sure it can become asur, but can it become Muktza? So he has another suggestion. He says, Afilu hachi shari alidei akum, ask a non-Jew. Excellent, okay. The non-Jew should throw it in the lake. The non-Jew should throw it into the garbage. Other options that we always talk about these days is we pour bleach over it, detergent, put some soap over it, it's inedible. Fine, that's also biur chametz. Throw it into a public garbage bin in the street. Then you get into some interesting questions. Who owns your garbage bin? Now, in Israel, I don't own the garbage bin in the street. There's not even a suggestion that I do. It's public, it's hefka. If I throw bread in the garbage bin, it's complete on Shabas, Erev Pesach, it's completely not mine. It doesn't belong to it's totally hefka. The garbage bins are owned by Jews. It doesn't matter. It's totally hefka. Nobody owns this. Nobody wants it. If I live in London, then I have to do a little bit of research. Who owns my wheelie bin, as we call them in London, that I put at the bottom of my garden when the bin men are coming to pick it up? Is that mine? In which case, I didn't do biur chametz. I just moved chametz from my house to one of my kalims sitting outside, and it's still sitting in my thing. That's really a halakhic problem. Or is it owned by the local authority? In which case, it's fine. Again, it's easy just to pour a bit of bleach over it, and then you don't have a problem either way. But it is actually a very interesting question. What was interesting as well? Can you throw things away in other people's bins? Like, or is that encroaching on somebody's private property? There are people who become very aggressive when they see in the street that you open up their bin and throw a tissue in. Excuse me, that's not your bin, you know? Okay, I don't know. So halachically, that would be an interesting discussion. Again, if it belongs to them, maybe no. If it belongs to the authority, maybe there's mechila. Yeah. You're going away, so we'll get to mechiras chametz. If you're going away, you've probably sold your chametz. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to that right now. Then I just want to bring up a fascinating debate which comes up in the Ramah. Look at the Ramah. The Ramah in number 12 says the following. He's talking about people who spit into the wind on Shabbos. Spit into the wind. I don't know if it's something you've ever thought of doing, but before you start, check out this halacha, number 12. Hagar. Harokek beruach b'Shabbos. Someone who spits into the wind on Shabbos. The haruach mefazer harok, and the ruach scatters the particles of the spittle. Chayev. That's a Torah prohibition. Mishum zoreh. You are winnowing. You are winnowing. Don't spit into the wind on Shabbos. Why is this relevant to us? Because one of the things that people do on a regular non-Shabbos Erev Pesach is they can crumble up the chametz, throw it to the wind blows it away. Ka'afradara, it's gone. So someone might say, well, because there's always a shlemazel that throws it into the wind and the blind blows it all back into the house. You have to know which way the wind's blowing. But why don't people say, I want to do that on Shabbos, I'll just take my challah, I'll crumble it up. There's no problem crumbling up challah, because ein toichin achat toichin. We hold in halacha, once something has been ground up in the processing, there's no further prohibition of grinding it up. It's a pre-ground thing. So you can crumble up your challah, but can you throw it in the wind? Says the Ramah, you can't throw something in the wind because it's zorah. Now this is a big problem. Good. That's the problem. Exactly. That's the problem. Zorah is one of the three malachot, which is this kind of borer. There's borer, there's maraked, which is sifting, and there's zorah. Zorah is when you take a pitchfork, you take the hay, you throw it in the wind, and you use the wind to separate off the chaff, which blows away, and the grain falls down to the ground. So you're just using the wind as a separating mechanism, which is clearly a malacha. It's like using a sieve. Why do I care if it's the wind? If you use water to separate, I want to sprinkle things on the water, and the bad stuff's going to float to the bottom, and the good stuff's going to stay on the top. You can't do that on Shabbos. That's called borer. You're using the water as a means to borer. So this is not separating anything. You're spitting in the wind, and there's nothing, you're keeping anything. You're not separate, you're not gaining, you're not making anything. Even if it was a malacha, even let's say it was a malacha, and the Yerushalmi feels that the malacha is using the wind to separate, which is very big chiddush, and the Bavli doesn't hold that way. The Bavli says, no, there has to be some separation. Even if you say that the malacha, like the Yerushalmi, is using the wind, well, using the wind for what? I just spat into the wind. What did I get out of it? It's not like I got something at the end that I can use. Where's the malachis machsheves? Why isn't this a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa? Why isn't this the psik reisha, the lo nichale? Like everybody's very unhappy with this halacha. The Magen Avraham, however, brings it down on Erev Pesach, which falls on Shabbos. He says, "Aval lizrot la ruach," to throw it into the wind. The havim malacha derasha says that's not good. That's not good. You can't do that. Okay, you can't throw it into the wind because the malacha derasha. A lot of the later poskim are very unhappy with this. The Aruch HaShulchan, if you read the piece, I didn't bring it to you, is extremely unhappy. To the point that he presses the button it's the last resort button in order to explain anything in a Jewish text. When it comes to this Ramah, where he says if you spat in the wind, it's a malacha of zorah, he says it must be a spelling mistake. Like you never ever do that unless there's no other alternative. And he says somebody, when they wrote this down, replaced a kuf with a hay. And the problem is not zorek, because how could it be zorek? Because you're not separating and you're not getting it. It's zorek. It's carrying. If you don't have an Erev and you throw something into the wind and the wind carries it away, you're carrying Dalet Amos, you're using it. Must be zorek, which has its own questions, how that exactly is carrying and what I'm going to use it for afterwards. But leaving aside, so I don't think you should be crumbling things into the wind because if for no other reason, then everyone else is going to get upset with you. But there is a big question. Better to just put it in the garbage and pour some bleach over it. Okay, mechiras chametz. What are you going to do with mechiras chametz? So normally speaking, you sell via the rabbi. Obviously, you don't sell the chametz to the rabbi. He doesn't want your aveiros. And you use him as a shaliach in order to sell the chametz. This year, what's going to be the deal? Because the mechiras chametz takes effect on Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach is Shabbos. You can't sell things on Shabbos. So how's it going to work? 3 approaches. So I sell the chametz on Friday. It's a different kind of shtar. A little bit like, as you said, when you go away for Pesach. When you go away for Pesach and you say to the rabbi, I'm just locking up my house and leaving for Pesach, it's a different kind of wording in the contract from when I'm staying for Pesach. Because if I'm staying for Pesach, I'm just selling stuff on Erev Pesach morning. When I'm leaving for Pesach, I want the house to be sold, everything to be sold before the night already, because I don't want to have a mitzvah of Bedikas Chametz. Therefore, the sale kicks in earlier, and that's why it's always an issue if you're using the Rav to sell your Chametz and leaving for Pesach, and you don't want to clean for Pesach. You need to check whether you really need to leave before the night before. Otherwise, you'll end up having to do Bedikas Chametz and see how that works. I'm not getting into that now. Yes, Thursday night. But this year, anyway, Friday morning could be the time that you do it, and you'll just exclude the chametz that you're going to use for Shabbos. Okay, nice and simple. Another option is let it be done on Friday at any time on Friday. Meaning, do I have to do mechiras chametz? Same thing we said before. In the morning, when I normally do it, it has to kick in, because in a normal year, Erev Pesach, it's too late to do it in the afternoon. It's too late because it's already from Chatzos, there's a Torah prohibition of owning chametz. So this year, who cares? It's Friday, it's Erev. So why do I care? So some people say, no, it's good to do it in the morning. Some people say, no, here it makes no difference. Because when it comes to burning the chametz, you're going to get mixed up maybe. I'm going to get mixed up from one year to the next year. When it comes to selling the chametz, it's only done by experts. The rabbi knows what he's doing. He's not going to get mixed up between last year and this year. So he can sell the chametz anytime on Friday afternoon. We had a big problem in Alan Shvut, by the way. Somebody in Alan Shvut realized that they'd forgotten to sell a load of whiskey. And they sell the whiskey. So they ran to the Rav, and on Erev Pesach, it wasn't Shabbos situation. They said, what are we going to do? And so he said, well, all the sales have all been done. No problem. Let's just go to a local non-Jew. And we'll do mechiras chametz just like the old times. So I live in Gush Etzion. 99 out of 100 non-Jews are Muslims, and they refuse to take the alcohol. They said, I'm not buying your chametz, not whiskey. I'm not going to have whiskey. And it was a real problem because everyone was schwitzing a little bit. I think they found a Filipino in the end, whatever, but it wasn't so posh. Or another option is, well, let's just sell it on Shabbos, meaning if I set up in advance, I have an internet sales site, and I program everything through in advance. And on Shabbos morning, there are sales clicking over and money coming in through the internet sales site, and I'm sitting there singing mirrors while I'm earning money on Shabbos. Is that a problem? So here maybe it's not a problem, because you're not selling it on Shabbos. It's just It's just happening in the way that you set it up before Shabbos. And that really is the answer. You can actually do the Mechiras Chametz on Shabbos as well, meaning not you go to the Rav on Shabbos, but that the sale could kick in Shabbos morning like it normally does Erev Pesach, because there really is no problem selling something on Shabbos, according to many poskim. Not everybody agrees on that when it's set up from before. Okay, another thing. Normally working on Erev Pesach is prohibited. Now this is a very interesting halacha. Look at number 14. Ha'oisem halacha be'erev Shabbos. This is the Shulchan Aruch. Somebody works on Erev Shabbos, michatzos l'mala, from chatzos onwards, from 12:30 or whatever is chatzos. We put them in cherem. The cherem, it's a serious issue. Even doing work bechinam, even doing work like for no money, it's still prohibited. Why are we so upset about people who work on Erev Pesach? Because Erev Pesach is the time for the Korban Pesach. We don't want people to miss the Korban Pesach because they decide to dig up the garden. Yeah, but we haven't had a Korban Pesach for nearly 2,000 years, and we're still putting people in cherem because they work on Erev Pesach? And the answer is yes, because there are actually certain rabbinic prohibitions that don't just go away when the reason, quotes unquote, go away. And we often, when it comes to the Beis HaMikdash, we keep things going to keep the Beis HaMikdash very live in our minds. And therefore, this is a good example where even though the reason has gone away long ago, then we still want to do it, and we still take it very seriously. Okay, fine. There is another reason. Look at number 15. The normal reason for not working on Erev Pesach on a regular year. I Mishnah Berurah says the halacha. Look at the Mishnah Berurah. This is based on a Yerushalmi. It's because of the Korban Pesach. So then if Pesach falls on Motzi Shabbos, Muktza the Malacha me'ika adin ad mincha, kevan the Shchitas Pesach hu lemacha b'Shabbos. So this year, Erev Pesach is on Shabbos. That's the day that they brought the Korban Pesach. You can bring the Korban Pesach on Shabbos. There's a whole procedure, but you bring it on Shabbos. You don't bring it on Erev Shabbos. So do I have any restrictions of working on the Friday? Erev. So on the one hand, no, because there's no Korban Pesach that day. There's the normal, don't work on a Friday right up to the last minute of Shabbos because, you're not going to get ready for the Shabbos. But then the halacha brings a second reason. Nothing to do with the Korban Pesach. There's a lot to prepare for Pesach. You can't leave it till the last minute. And another reason why Chazal said not to work on Erev Pesach is because you're going to underestimate how long it's going to take you to get ready for Seder. There's a lot to do. I don't need to tell you that. If that's the case, if that's the reason, which is the key reason, then that applies even on Erev. Because almost everything you're going to do to prepare for Seder night is going to have to be on Friday. You can't do anything on Shabbos. And you can't leave most of it to Motzei Shabbos. You want to start your Seder before 10 o'clock at night. Okay? So for this reason, there are people who, again, on Erev Shabbos are going to start to ease off like on a regular Erev Pesach. Okay, let's go quickly now. The meals on Erev Shabbos. This is the interesting thing. And here's where the three questions come in that everybody likes to get excited about. What am I going to eat on Erev Pesach? People seem to get very involved in that. On the one hand, people say, there's nothing you can eat on Erev Pesach. And on the other hand, there's lots you can eat on Erev Pesach. And then they're going to say, yeah, but most of that stuff is kitniot. Okay, is that true? We'll see. And this year, of course, I can't eat nothing. A regular Erev Pesach, I don't recommend you eat nothing because it's a busy day. But leaving aside Taanis Bechorim. But this year, you have to eat 3 meals. So you have to make a motzi, and you really have 3 options to make a motzi. What are you going to make a motzi on? Can you use matzah? We're going to see. Can you use chametz? And can you use something which is neither matzah nor chametz? Okay, but something in between. We'll see. Number 16. Amar Rabbi Levi. Ha'echel matzah be'erev Pesach. Okay, it's someone who eats matzah on Erev Pesach. It's k'shiba'al u'rusasa b'beis chamav. We had a whole shir on that. Remember, we unpacked that. What has it got to do with sleeping with your fiancé in your future father-in-law's house? Why is that connected with eating matzah on Erev Pesach? And the reasoning is very deep. It's not just a phrase that Chazal use. Chazal just don't use that for anything else. They use it for this, and we'll see it was partly because of the Shevet Yehuda, who did used to do that with their fiancés in their father-in-law's house. And we'll see, you can go back and look at that share another time. The Habal, Arusasa, Bebeis Chamav, and someone who has sexual relations with their fiancé in the father-in-law's house, like is Malchus, you get Malchus. And there's a very sweet idea I brought you down in by the Mari Weil. They say just like you need Sheva brachas before you are able to actually have yichud with your new wife or husband, so too there are Sheva brachas in the Seder before you get to Achilas Matzah. And he goes through them. There's Brei Priagofen, and then there's Kiddush, and there's Sheachianu, and there's Karpas, and there's da-da-da-da. He goes through, which is a very sweet idea. So matzah you can't eat on Erev Pesach. Rambam, number 17. The reason he's saying here is it has to be very clear that this matzah is for a mitzvah. You have to have kavanah on Seder night. If you've been eating matzah all day, it's just, more matzah. I was eating now already. No, it has to be a clear difference. Okay? Well, Misha achal matzah Erev Pesach, he says you get smakas, etc. So when does Erev Pesach start for this halacha? There are three opinions. One opinion is it starts on Friday night, or Erev Pesach night. Think of a regular year. I can't eat matzah already from Erev Pesach night. Now, you'll tell me there are people who don't eat matzah from Rosh Chodesh. There are people who don't eat matzah from Purim. They all have bases. But Me'ika Hadin, it's really Erev Pesach, you can't eat matzah. So, does it start from the night before? Some people say, yes, it does, because it's Erev Pesach. Says the Brisker Rav, well, 1 second. Look at the Manishtana. Belayla hazeh, one second. Shebachol haleilot anu ochlim chametz umatzah. You say on Seder night, every other night, I can eat whatever I like, chametz or matzah. It says, you see, you were allowed to eat matzah on Erev Pesach night. That's shebachol haleilot. Okay, not everyone agrees with that. Some people say it's at dawn. That's really how we paskin. Other people want to say that it's only prohibited when chametz is prohibited. That's not a mainstream opinion. I brought you a couple of sources. But we paskin, the Ramah says, number 18, you have to stop eating matzah in the morning of Erev Pesach, which is Shabbos this year. Aval matzah sheyotzim b'balayla, a matzah that you're going to use to do the mitzvah at night, because it has to be obviously a distinction between what you're doing now and nighttime. Asurim le'echol kol hayom arba'asa, you can't eat it the whole day. That sounds like even from the evening. The Mishnah Berurah says, "Hainu me'amud hashachar." But we paskin from the morning, first daylight. V'yesh nogim shlo le'echol matzah mirosh chodesh, and then he brings down old people don't eat it for since then. So, how's that going to help you? We Ashkenazim don't eat matzah already for weeks before Pesach, and therefore eating matzah on Friday night for dinner is not an option for most people. Even though, technically speaking, if you didn't have that minhag to not eat matzah, it would be an option because the real isser of matzah for Ashkenazim is really only in the morning. Okay, for Sephardim, maybe it's already for the night before. Okay, so we're not going to use matzah. Matzah ashira. So Itamar said, let's use matzah ashira. Now, matzah ashira is matzah which is kneaded with, not with water, but with fruit juice. Now, there are fundamentally two opinions about this. Everybody agrees that matzah is not good for Seder night because it doesn't just say lechem on Seder night, it says lechem oni, poverty bread, the bread of poverty. Poverty-stricken people do not need their matzahs with wine and olive oil and eggs and fruit juice. They don't. They just have a little matzah, water and flour, and that's it. So everyone agrees matzah ashira, rich matzah, which we sometimes call egg matzahs, yeah, you can't use for Seder night. But is that included in the prohibition of not eating matzah on Erev Pesach? And the short answer to that is no, it can't be. You're not allowed to eat on Erev Pesach the same kind of matzah that you could eat on Seder night. And everyone agrees you can't use this for Seder night, so you can use this on Erev Pesach in terms of that prohibition. There's just one small problem. Even though the Sephardim turn around and say matzah which is baked with fruit juice, kneaded with fruit juice, does not become chametz. Even if you leave it the whole day, it just can't. Only water can produce chametz. So if you knead your matzah with wine, with eggs, with olive oil, etc., it'll never be chametz as long as you make sure there's not even a drop of water in it. But pure fruit juice, fine. The Ashkenazim, there is a psak of Rashi, the Raavad, that say, well, no, maybe fruit juice is worse than water. And if you knead your matzahs with fruit juice, it will become chametz even more quickly than regular chametz. You haven't even got 18 minutes. Now, the majority of Rishonim go with the first view, which is lenient, which says that matzah kneaded with fruit juice will never be chametz. And that is the Sephardi psak. Matzah ashira is not chametz. The Ashkenazim, however, turn around and say, we're not happy, we don't really use it. Have a look at number 19 and 20. Says the Mechaber, me may Paris, below mine, if you have juice without water, ein machmitzim cloud, just can't become chametz. And you can eat this matzah shira all the way through Pesach. Even if it waited the whole day and you didn't bake it till hours, it doesn't matter. Etc. Comes along the Remark 20 and says, where we live, ein nohagim lalush b'mei peros. What does ein nohagim mean? He doesn't say it's chometz. He says, we don't do that because, Rashi was worried about it. Yeah? The Ravid was worried about it. We're choshesh for those opinions. Therefore, it's not chometz, obviously, as long as it's not chometz. There is matzah shir that you can buy, which is real chometz gomer, and you just have to get a good hechsher on it. Obviously, the Sfarim on Pesach only eat matzah shir, which has a good Pesach hechsher. And he says, ve'ein l'shanos, don't change the minhag, im loy b'shas hadchak, unless it's an emergency. L'tzarchechayl, you have sick people who need more softer matzahs, or zakein, or an old person with no teeth, meaning if it was chometz, we wouldn't give it to old people and sick people. It's obviously not chometz, but we don't use it. We have a minhag not to use it. Okay. So what about Erev Pesach, which falls on Shabbos? Sfaradim, no problem. Matzah ashira all day long, almost all day long. You shouldn't eat it after the 10th hour because you shouldn't be eating anything mazonos related after the 10th hour on Erev Pesach, any Erev Pesach. But Sfaradim say use it Friday night, use it Shabbos morning, have a Shabbos Sudas mid-afternoon, you're good to go. What are the Ashkenazim going to do? So you could turn around and say, well, my friend, this is an emergency. If ever there was an emergency, it's making hamotzi on Erev Pesach, which falls on Shabbos. There are Ashkenazi poskim that are full on in favor of the Matzah Ashira option. There really are. Rav Hershel Shechter, his guidelines are Matzah Ashira, not a problem. We have a minhag not to eat Matzah Ashira, correct. On Pesach, we never had a minhag on Erev Pesach, which falls on Shabbos. It's not part of that minhag. You can eat Matzah Ashira. That is a minority. Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, I saw a shir by Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, the previous Sephardi chief rabbi. He said it's fine, even for Ashkenazim. Even for Ashkenazim. Okay, you can decide whether you pass like the Sephardi chief rabbi for Ashkenazim. But Rav Hershel Shechter says it's fine, but most Ashkenazi Rabbanim do not like it, and therefore do not recommend it. Now, of course, you can eat Matzah Ashira on Friday nights. Everyone agrees with that. And you can eat Matzah Ashira, if you're Ashkenazi, when you can still eat chametz. It can't be worse than chametz. So you can eat it for Shabbos morning, but you can't use it for Sudah Shlishit. Because if you're going to make that later, because the Ashkenazim are going to say, no, you can't do that. Or having said that, there are a few Ashkenazim that will say that you can use Matzah Ashira even in the afternoon for Sudah Shlishit. I will just raise one interesting question, which is if you're a Sephardi using Matzah Ashira, what brocha do you make on Matzah Ashira? Now, the Sephardim are very careful not to make hamotzi unless it's real bread. Once you put a bit of sweetness in, once you put a few raisins in, once you put a bit of sugar in, they won't make hamotzi on this. They'll make mezonot on this. So now, if you're a Sephardi who says, I'm good with Matzah Ashira, yeah, no problem, we don't hold its comments. But the whole point is you need to make hamotzi, and this is not something you make hamotzi on. So there are two options for Sephardim. Either they just have to eat more. That's usually an option on Erev Pesach, by the way. It comes to Palah here, just eat more. So eat more matzah, and then you are kovei suda on the matzah, and you eat the amount of mazonos that even if you ate real mazonos, you would probably have to bench. And there's a debate about that. But even if you sit there eating Oreos, there comes a point when either you explode, not on Erev Pesach, I'm talking about generally, either you feel sick or you have to bench, or both. So Sephardim will either eat a lot of matzah, or some of them say, no, the fact that you're making it on Shabbos, the Shabbos meal is koveya enough, the Suda, to upgrade it to hamotzi. That's difficult because they don't normally say that on a regular Shabbos. I need to go on because I've got 4 minutes and I've got a lot to do. So I brought you the Matzah Ashira options. As I say, if you're Ashkenazi, you decide who you pass and like. I brought you some options practically at the bottom of page 7. There's a chometz option. People get very OCD about chometz on Erev Pesach. I get that. But if you're just sensible about things, the chometz won't fly all around the house just because you're eating chometz on Friday night and on Shabbos morning. Okay, you're going to have to eat chometz before the zman that you can't eat chometz. But say people don't eat crumbly chometz, eat outside, eat off chad pa'ami, yeah, eat a pita which doesn't fall apart. One thing which I've never quite got a great answer to is the time frame. Now, as you probably know, there are two ways of calculating the halachic hours, either from dawn to dusk, that's the Magen Avraham, or from sunrise to sunset, which is the Vilna Gaon. Now, many people go like the Vilna Gaon on a regular daily basis for saying Krishma. You'll see when there's man for Krishma, there'll be Krishma, has to be said by, 8:45 according to the Magen Avraham, and 9:30 according to the Gra. Most of the men I know, maybe I only know men who sleep late in the morning, will say, yeah, the Gra, we go like the Gra. Okay, and therefore they rely on the Gra for that mitzvah derasha. When it comes to eating chametz on Erev Pesach, which falls on Shabbos, all of a sudden no one ever heard of the Gra. Gra doesn't exist. It's 10 o'clock. You have to finish by 10 o'clock. Okay, finish by 10 o'clock. But that's the Magen Avraham. The Gra says 10:31. Oh, you can't be mekel. Why can't you be mekel? You're mekel with Krishma, which is a mitzvah deraisa. You can't be mekel with the mitzvah derabbanon on a very stressful Erev Pesach morning to go like the Gra when you normally go like the Gra. I never got a good answer to that. Except people smile and say, Chumra de Pischa. People are machmir on Pesach. Yeah, people are also stressed on Erev Pesach when they're trying to eat a meal. So you could please ask your Rav Shaila on that, but it doesn't seem to me any good reason why you can't go like the Zman of the Gra on this and finish your Chometz by 10:31. And therefore, if you're going to do that, fine, you'll daven early, you'll have a meal, you'll work it out, you'll use, obviously, you can't be using Chometz stick plates anymore because what are you going to do with them? You know, when Yom Tov comes in. So you'll be using Chad Pa'ami, getting rid of the Challah, and then doing Pesach stick plates. The Matzah Ashira option we talked about a little bit. Let's just quickly go through some of these last things. Suda Shlishit, I'm not going to read through the entire thing for you, but you basically have 3 or 4 options for Suda Shlishit. Option number 1 is you're not going to have bread. You're just going to have some fruit or something. That is an option. It's not Chatchila, but it's an option. Another option is you're going to have Suda Shlishit early in the morning before the Zman of Chometz. That's a bit funny. You're having Suda Shlishit at 10 o'clock in the morning. Really, Suda Shlishit should be in the afternoon. It should really be after Mincha. There is one view which is fascinating, which I brought you actually on page 9. I'm just going to mention it, which is that maybe there is no mitzvah of Suda Shlishit on Shabbos, which falls on Erev Pesach. Because maybe there's just nothing you can eat. If you can't eat matzah ashira, and you certainly can't eat chometz, and you certainly can't eat matzah, so maybe you can't. What do you mean you can't do it? Well, let me ask you a question. How do you fulfill the mitzvah of Suda Shlishit when Shabbos falls on is Yom Kippur? What do? You go, it's Yom Kippur. Of course there is no Suda Shlishit. So there are days where there is no Suda Shlishit on Shabbos. Maybe this is one of them. And there's a very interesting statement of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who would learn Torah instead of Suda Shlishit on this particular Shabbos because there was no other option. And the Aruch HaShulchan is actually quite in favor of that as an option as well. Let me just mention one last thing because I need to mention the word so that people feel they're ready for Pesach, which is kitniot. Okay? Just before kitniot, just 1 minute before kitniot. One of the options that they give you in a hotel on Erev Shabbos is they bring out matzah meal rolls. Yeah? Because they don't want you bringing any chometz into the hotel. And they say that, matzah shira, the Ashkenazim are not going to use. So they make rolls that look just like these bread rolls, the stuff you eat on Pesach. The question with those is, are they really matzah if they're made with matzah meal? And therefore, are you back in the problem of eating matzah on Erev Pesach, or can they make them in some other way? Usually they make them sweet in some way, but just let me mention kitniot. One of the questions that you're going to be asking your rabbi on Erev Pesach this year is, oh, come on, Rabbi, I've got to start eating a load of food on Erev Pesach. Why can't I eat kitniot? So that raises the question, which I'll finish with, what is the time to stop eating kitniot? According to most Ashkenazim, that is, whenever you can't eat chometz, you can't eat kitniot. It's whenever 10:31, there you are. So that doesn't help you after that. Other poskim, there's a Pri Megadim that says, no. Kitniot is a minhag. The minhag applies on Pesach. The minhag didn't apply on Erev Pesach, especially a stressed out Erev Pesach when people are looking for things to serve. And therefore, there are poskim who Ashkenazim who will say, obviously Sfaradim goes without saying, who will say that you can eat a kitniot on Erev Pesach this year. The question is, are you brave enough to eat them on your Pesach kelim or not? Okay. And the answer most poskim is you shouldn't really have kitniot in your Pesach kelim. You should really have them on Chad Pa'ami. If you did, it doesn't make the kelim chometz, but please speak to your local Orthodox rabbi on that issue. I think the men usually go home saying, yeah, it's probably fine to have kitniot, and the women say, you're not putting kitniot on my kelim for love nor money. So please ask a shaila. I'll end there. I wish you all a good week. We talked about Erev Matzah. Sorry. Next week we're having a final shir before the break, which I'm going to talk about the concept of chumrah on Pesach. Why is this meta halachically such a big issue? Lots of things to talk about.